Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the studio this evening. So tonight we are going to paint this. I believe this is an apple blossom. I got this picture from PMP Art, and they didn't have the name of this in the title, but in the little hashtag it said apple blossom. So I'm going to go with the fact that this is an apple blossom, and this is what we're going to try to paint tonight. I have gone ahead and pre-drawn this. Let's see if I can't zoom you in so you can see it. I believe you can see what I've got there. And I have taken this and I have simplified it a little bit. Got a lot of leaves here. We don't need some of those. I think I've got down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 leaves and 3 or 4 petals on here. A few fewer than are on the original original picture, but that's fine. We'll deal with it. The pad that I'm using today is a Strathmore watercolor journal. It's a 140-pound bond, 6x9, I believe, somewhere in there. The paints we're going to be using tonight are my M. Graham paints that I've put together in my travel tin. I'm going to set those off to the side. Got my color card here so I can tell you exactly what colors I'm using, and I think we can do this whole thing with my smaller brushes. These are my Winsor Newton Cotman brushes. I think mostly I'll be just using the rounds here, a 6, a 4, and a 1. I'm going to start with the bigger one, the 6, and this is what I'm going to hope to do. As I'm looking at this, I've got these nice pinkish colors up here and in the petals, and as I can see they're more intense out here, at least these two are anyways, out at the ends, and then they blend real nicely down to the base down here where it's very pale down here. And you can see here as it comes in, as this petal comes in, it's very pale, almost no color back here. And the same thing on this petal too, only not quite to the extreme. Pink at the edge, and then as we get back into the base back here, it's almost nothing. So I'm going to try to blend my colors really nicely as I go out here. Let me put this back here. There we go. So you can see that. Maybe like that. And let me just try to adjust everything. I'm going to start with this petal here. It's the biggest one that I've got out here. I'm going to get the entire thing wet to start with. Just going to let it get nice and wet. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to put my color way out here at the tip. I know it's a bit far away, you can't see. All I'm doing is putting water on it. There's not really anything exciting yet going on. But I'm going to put my color way out here at the tip, and I'm going to try to blend it all the way in. Okay, so over here I'm going to start with some quinacridone rose, just a little bit like this. I don't need a whole lot. Now I think I can zoom you in a little bit. And this is a pretty light flower here, so I'm just going to dip that little bit. That's going to be all that I need right there on this one, and I'm going to pull that. I'm going to use the existing water that I put on there, and it's still wet. It's got more than just a little bit of sheen on there. You can see it's still running. If you can see it, it's running, but I'm just pulling that out. And I'm going to let this get really light down here at the base. In fact, I'm going to put another little dollop right up here just so that tip has a little bit of extra color. And I'm going to get a little bit of Hansa yellow, just the ever smallest amount. And I'm going to drop it right down on the side. I just want something to warm that up a little tiny bit. There we go, that's plenty. Now, you probably can't see that real well. and it's going to dry light too. But that's a light petal, so we're gonna be good with that. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna move to something that's not touching that while that dries. I'm gonna pick a leaf at random. This one over here will be fine. Let's just pick this one, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna color the whole thing in. No. We're not gonna color the whole thing in. We're gonna wet this whole thing. It's a much better way to say it. I have to lean over just a bit so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And I'm gonna mix up, I'll mix up a little bit of my sap green. Let's do this. A little bit of my sap green, a little bit of my phthalo green, and I'm gonna stay with my Hansa yellow here, and these are gonna be the colors I'm gonna use in my leaves. I'm going to drop a little bit of that Hansa yellow, and it's going to spread out immediately, which is totally fine. Still got a little bit of extra water on there. I'm going to come back into my sap green, and I'm going to put it on there. And I want that Hansa yellow to keep on there and just give me a really nice, vibrant green with this sap green. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo green. I'm going to drop it on here just like that, and that's going to be a nice contrasty. That's going to be kind of the shadowy color here, a darker color. I don't know if it's really a shadowy color, but that leaf kind of curls over right there, and I'm going to put that in. I'm going to let that do what it's going to do, and I'm going to find another leaf. That's not quite dry yet. I could come and do a petal here, but I think I'm going to come back and do a leaf over here. This one behind, I'm going to do, you can see I've got a little bit of green on my brush. Didn't get washed out. Totally fine. Not a big deal. Because you know why? I'll paint a leaf. The fact that it's green actually kind of helps me out just a little bit. Let me look over here. Okay. I want to see my picture, which means I got to back out just a little bit for you. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to paint out here that green and go under here somewhat with that phthalo, and you can see everything is still pretty wet. As soon as I touch my brush to the paper, everything runs right around. And I want those colors to be able to sit in there and meld and do what they're going to do a little bit. I don't want to try to control them too much. I'm trying to get out of that habit. I do like to do that. I want everything to be just so, not exactly like this, but more kind of like I have it in my brain. And that's not always the best way to do things. So I'm trying to let the paint do what it likes to do, which is to run all over and go all over the paper. Run and mix and do all of that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm just coming over to, come on, let's get in here, to do this next petal. Same thing, this one is really light too. I got a nice bit of water on there. That's going to run all over. Going to go back to my quinacridone rose. Just get a little bit there. I don't need much. I'm going to drop it on this edge. And that should be plenty for me to drag all the way back. In fact, that might be too much, but we'll deal with it. It'll be fine. And I'm just pushing that around in the water. I'm letting the water take that, but also, just because you might be able to see it somewhere at some point in time, I'm painting in the direction of the petal. I don't have any proof that that's going to make any difference, but on the off chance that it's going to, I want the petals to be painted kind of in the right direction. Now I did just go back in and take just a tiny bit off because I want the front of this petal to be just a little bit more intense than the petal behind it. I'm starting to dry here a little bit, and I don't want to dry really. I want to be able to work with this just a few seconds longer. I have to scrub a little bit. Oh, I think it'll be all right. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it'll be fine. We'll deal with that. Now I gotta go and find my next leaf that I'm gonna paint. I don't know, this one right in the middle seems good enough. Got a big ball of water on there. There we go. And I'm doing the same thing I did before. I'm just wetting the entire leaf, getting it nice and damp. I'll zoom you back in. There's not much to see on that leaf to show you as far as explanation goes. So I'm going to zoom you back in. I'm going to drop in my yellow. There we go. I'm going to put a little over here. And then I'm going to get a little of my phthalo green. Now if you were to do this on your own, you could use Viridian if you wanted to instead of phthalo green. I happen to have phthalo green in this kit, which is why I'm using it. If you wanted to use, I don't know, a different green other than sap green, a Windsor green, or a permanent green light. You can use a permanent green dark, a permanent green light from a couple of different manufacturers if you wanted to. There's lots of choices you would have if you wanted to do this just a bit differently. Like I said, I'm just making use of the colors that I have on this palette, and I'm just going to go with that. And what I did over here, and I hope you can see this, is I left this much yellower. I want that to stand out from the petal behind it. So it could have been a lot greener, but I think the yellow is going to make it look a little bit better. It's going to differentiate it from the petal behind it anyways. And now I'm going to come up and do this big petal back here, which is this one, the big dark one in the back. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get it nice and wet. And it looks like I didn't clean out my brush quite enough. I have just an ever so slight green tint on this. Nothing I'm going to worry about tonight. Let me set that out so we can see what we got going on here. This is pretty intense up here, so I'm going to put a good bit of my quinacridone rose up there, and then I'm going to draw it out, but I've got to draw it out in such a way that by the time I get to the bottom down here, I've got not a lot of color. Let's see, I can look over here. I still have a bit I can work with on the side as I'm looking here, but as I look right in here, that's part of that petal too. Not much there. So I'm going to let that be much lighter. I think that's going to be pretty good, just like that. All right, what do we have left to do here? I'm going to do, that's dry. I can see that's dry. So I'm going to come and I'm going to do this one back here. And again, this is a little funny because the petals in the background of this are actually more intense, more color than the ones in the foreground. So we're a little opposite of what normally might be. But we're going to go with it. And just come down here, take a look. There we go, a little bit more water. I want to make sure I've got enough so that when I start to get paint on here, I've got plenty of time to push that paint around. Just nice and wet. There we go. All right, once again, back to the quinacridone rose. And this one starts right out here. I'm going to put a nice dollop of that in. You can probably see that running right out. I'm going to clean my brush a little bit, and I'm just going to pull that out and down. There we go. Right out to my pencil line. And down this way, I need a little bit more here. Now this is where it's going to get a little tricky, because we need to have more color back behind to make it stand out, but not so much that it overpowers that petal in front. And I'm going to put just a little bit of my, what was I using here? Hansa yellow. A little bit of my Hansa yellow right down here. There we go. That's plenty. I'll let that pull out that way. Clean my brush. Well, I think that's pretty good. I'm not going to monkey with that anymore. I like the way that's coming out. You back out a little bit because the next thing is another petal. I got one right here. And again, the same thing, just getting the whole thing nice and wet. I keep saying that. I don't always do this. I used to do the paint like this more than I do now, probably. But I used to do it more and just let the paint mix on the paper. It was always kind of a fun way. I don't know why I got away from doing it. But it's kind of nice, and then the paint gets to be the star of the show instead of me. I just have to sit here and throw some color on. How hard can that be? Anybody can do that, I think. I hope, because I'm an anybody. Anyway, it's looking good. You know what? I just touched that over there. I don't want to do that. You just dab that off for just a second. Well, it looks like we're going to have to come back on these leaves and do one of two things. Draw in a little shadow with some colored pencil. I was going to use colored pencil to do the veining in here, but we might have to do a little bit to define these leaves a little bit more, but maybe not. Maybe we can do this on a second go round here. Got another leaf back here. Like I said, I did try to simplify this a little bit. I took some of these leaves out to try and make this a reasonable length painting. There we go. And oh, I forgot that leaf doesn't just reside on the top of this one, it comes down below. Let's fill that in down there. There we go. And let's see how we can do this one. I drop a little bit of that phthalo green in there. We're letting all these mix and do what they want. I suppose there's not a real order that I have to follow to put these in. I know you're supposed to put the light color in first, and then you follow with the medium tone, and then you finish up with the darkest tone that you have, but we're just trying to let these paints mix and do what they want to do out here, so I think we can basically do whatever we want to with it. At least that's how I'm going to treat it. And I suppose that if we were going to paint, oh, I don't know, something with lots of layers of detail and whatnot, we should probably do it that way, but we're painting a leaf. Leaves are fun. There we go. Let's see. I want a little bit more of that. Now I've dropped down, if you haven't noticed, dropped down to a smaller brush. There we go. I have this color green above. I got to put some of this color green below. There you go. I think that's going to turn into a nice leaf for us. I didn't mean to get quite that small of a brush, but I did want to get a little bit smaller as I'm working with a little bit tighter space here. I got one over here. Whoa. Let's see, this leaf comes all right in front of that petal. There we go. Oh, and I should say, I haven't posted anything about it. I should say and I don't know anything about this organization, but I got an email from a company called ViewSpot, I believe. I don't know who ViewSpot is, but they said I am the 48th best YouTube instructor, 48th best watercolor instructor on YouTube. So I'm going to take that as a compliment, considering I just kind of started doing this as a lark and found out that I enjoy it, and decided to keep with it somewhat, so that if you guys like watching me, or I'm actually good at it, then I think that's fantastic. Oh, that's way too thick back there. Oh, there goes my ratings. I made a big blunder. There goes my ratings, way down. Oh, that's okay. I'm not really doing it for ratings. I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and it's a hobby that I really like. If I can bring some joy to others who might enjoy the same kind of thing, then I think I've done a good job. And as I do it more and more, hopefully I'll get a bit better and a bit better at this. And if I get better at it, then you all will probably learn a little bit more. Or maybe you'll just be a little bit more entertained. That would work too. That'd be great. Either way, we'll keep plugging away and see what comes of it all. But when I woke up and read that email, well, first of all, I thought, what is this? Is this some kind of scam? Who's trying to get me to buy something or do something, but there was no asking for me to send any money or sign up for anything. All they wanted was for me to put that, well, actually they didn't even say they wanted me to. They said if I wanted to, I could. They had a badge I could put on my YouTube channel or on my website if I wanted to. I haven't done it yet. I don't know if I'm going to do it. It might be fun to see. It might be fun to put up there. And again, I haven't done a lot of research to know even if it's a real thing or not, but it's kind of fun. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm making my stem, and I'm trying to keep with the same color scheme here. I'm putting in my quinacridone rose into that stem, and I know that that's going to give me some kind of a gray brown when it mixes with the green that I just put down there. And I know that I've got this nice pink up at the top here, and I'm hoping that it's all going to kind of mix and meld together. And did I just do that? Really? Okay. Let's see if I can get that. I don't want to do that. Where did that come from? How did I do that? Well, we'll take that right off. We won't worry about it. All right, so it's time to look and see what we've got here. I am going to grab some watercolor pencils. Here they are. These are the Prismacolor watercolor pencils. And I've pre-gotten a couple of colors. This is Crimson Red. And this is Carmine Red. Come on, Carmine. This is Carmine Red. I think maybe the Carmine Red is going to be a little bit better. And I know that these petals up here are dry. I'm waiting for this to dry, really is what I'm doing. And I want to drop in just some nice lines here and there. Just wherever I'm looking at them here, and I think they need to go. I'm going to drop a couple of them in. Now you could paint these in. I should get in closer so you can see what I'm doing. You could paint these in if you really wanted to. It would be tough, but you could do it. You could do it. I couldn't do it. I've tried to do it. It's hard to do. And so that's why I'm not doing it. But you could do it if you wanted to. There we go. And a few veins here. These ones go down and around like this. Well, I'm glad I went with this Carmine Red. Carmine Red. This looks great on here. And I'm not going to do too many, just a couple. In fact, this is probably all that I want to do. Just a couple. I don't want to put a million lines on there. And I'm going to take another color. Now this is terracotta. So what I'm looking at here, if I can show you, I hope you can see it. These veins over here are kind of a greenish color. They kind of match, but I've got a lot like this one and these ones over here that aren't the green vein color. So I'm going to draw in a few of these with this terracotta. We're going to see how it's going to look. Let's see, I can go right up here. Like, and I'm just gonna make some marks here. There we go. It's just gonna add some texture to this branch a little bit. There we go. And then what we need to do, if I'm looking at this picture, I've got this nice gray background here. So I'm gonna make a nice gray. Actually, the way I like to make my gray, I'll just show you. Let me clean out a bay here. Is I like to take my ultramarine, I'll do it here, ultramarine. In fact, you can see these are the two that I use the most. I make a bunch of gray. And burnt umber. Just mix these two up. And there you go, voila, simple as that. You want a warmer gray, you put a little bit more burnt umber in there. You want a cooler gray, put a little bit more ultramarine in there. There's your gray. Easy to mix your colors and get a nice gray. You could add just a touch of yellow in it. It would really warm it up quite a bit. I'm going to leave it with these two colors. And I'm going to make it a little bit soupy because we're going to add just a little bit. In fact, that's too strong. I'm going to add just a little bit of gray around here to pay homage to our original painting. There we go. Very light. I don't want a lot. Just enough to set it off a little bit, but not enough to overwhelm the colors in the foreground. There. We can come down. We don't have to come all the way down our stem. We can come down a little bit. And this is one area when you're doing a nice light background like this that I certainly don't mind if you get a little bit of a back run in it, especially if it's really light. I think that can, especially if it's really light, because that'll add a lot of depth, a lot of detail to your background without you having to do anything to it. And your viewer kind of will have to take a second look and go, is that really there? What's going on with that? And it could help you out a great deal. Yes, I'm twisting this a little bit. I realize that. I don't mean to, but I can't. It'll be hard for me to reach around the other direction. So I'm just going to grab it and twist a little bit. If you're painting at home, I hope you twist your paper. If you're one of the people who tapes your paper down to a board when you paint, then you've probably learned not to move your paper, and that's okay too. But for those of us who don't typically do that, there's nothing wrong with, having to turn your paper just every now and again to get into a spot. I'm gonna paint over there. I got a little close over here, and I should have started my drawing a little further on the other side. Live and learn. Live and learn. I could have done it on a little larger piece of paper too. I suppose that would have worked out quite well. And I wouldn't have to worry about anything. There we go. And you can see now. I hope you can see. You might be able to see if you could. There you go. We've got a little bit of interest and detail in that background without having to do a whole lot to it. I'm just going to try to finish up the veins on this leaf right there. And I think that's gonna do it for us. I'm not gonna do anything else, because if I did, it would just be fiddling with it. I'm gonna sign it. There we go. We're done. There's my version of this apple blossom. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. Thanks for coming to the studio tonight. I had a blast painting with you. We'll see you again here next time. Bye-bye.